Hello, hello, my fellow art nerds, and welcome back to another MediBang Paint Pro tutorial. I'll be drawing your classic European dragon. Now, if you know how to draw, a dog or a cat or some kind of similar mammal, you'll find that the anatomy is actually quite similar. They use the similar shapes, they use similar body structure. I think I'm going to draw this dragon in, kind of a sitting position. So let's start off by drawing the head. I'm going to draw just a circle. And down into the snout. I'm going to draw another circle. Connect them almost like that. And then coming down from the head, we can, follow the width of our original circle, our big circle, come down into the neck here. Which I want to give a bit of an S curve, that's what you'd call this. I'm going to give it an S curve. Almost like a long rectangle, long cylinder. I'm noticing that I've kind of made it a bit big here, so I'm going to hit Control T on my computer. I'm going to resize that a little bit. And now coming down from the neck, I want to overlap it a little bit. I'm going to do another circle for the upper chest, pectoral kind of area here. And almost like a snowman, I'm going to overlap once again. Draw another slightly larger circle for the bottom part of this torso. Now the circles don't have to be perfect, this is the sketching portion, that's what you would call this. Before I move on, I'm going to connect all of these, just to make the transitions just a little bit smoother, so it looks less like a snowman and more like a body. So what we're going to do next is draw, the legs on the sides here, almost like, he is in a sitting position, just like if you've ever seen a dog sit, the legs are kind of on the sides over here, just kind of like that. So let's do that together. So what we're going to do is draw a couple of thin ovals on the sides over here. It's almost like he's crouched. I'm even going to add a little bit of a line here, just kind of define the shape of the legs. And then we're going to draw the feet. Now the interesting thing about dragon feet is that some people, when they reference things for dragons, a lot of the times when you pick up reference, you want to look up photo reference. But when a lot of people are looking up reference for dragons, sometimes they look up lizards because, they are very reptilian in nature. However, it's more often than not that you'd want to look up bird feet for dragons. Bird feet. Now the thing is that when, in the medieval era, when they found dragons, a lot of the times they found dinosaur bones, and they were like, oh my god, that's a bird, right? Or it's like, that's a dragon. And honestly, no, it was probably a dinosaur. And the thing with dinosaurs is that birds came from dinosaurs, so they're the closest relatives. So more often than not, you will want to reference birds when drawing dragons. So coming down into the feet, you can kind of draw them almost like how you would a duck foot for now. You can worry about everything later. You can worry about the details afterwards. We just kind of want to get the shape in there first. And then we can come down into the arms, or our front legs. So you can start off with the top one being a longer oval. And then the bottom one, another overlapping oval. You just want to make sure that we're building in and blocking in all of the shapes first before we get into any of that. Now for the next part, a joint. Kind of draw small circles where, the wrists or the joint of the foot would be. You can draw another one of those duck-footed. Next is the tail. Now I love drawing super, super long tails. I'm gonna curve this all the way from behind and curve it all the way back up to the front here. Just like that. Number one thing when you are drawing tails is that you want to make sure that it's nice and fluid. And when I say fluid, it means that the curve should be nice and smooth. And what will really help with that is if you use big, long strokes instead of small ones. So use your entire arm instead of just your wrist. Let's go on with the horns. Now I love drawing horns as well. So let's do some of those. I'm going to give them maybe 4 horns because I want to do a couple of big ones and then a couple of small ones. So let's start with the big ones. We're going to start from the top. You'll mark off where it's going to start from because, horns are technically cones. We want to think of them as cones or as large cylinders. So I'm going to start off by marking off, the circles where the base would be, and then get into the shape of the horns. So mine, it's almost like a wave. How you do your horns is up to you. This is kind of just the shape that I wanted. I'm gonna do another one off the side here. Almost like a smaller version of the big one there. And then I'm gonna do the ear, which I'm gonna draw almost as a little leaf shape almost. But now we want to, you know, draw the wings. Now wings, fun thing about wings is that wings are actually very similar to arm anatomy. So if I were to draw an arm, right, let's just draw a person's arm really quickly. Wings are basically just adding another extension or bringing, you know, the fingers outwards, then adding extra ones over here, right? That's pretty much how wing anatomy is. It's the same thing with dragons, except now it's just an extension of their shoulder rather than coming from out here. So what it is, let's go down, up, then back down. It's almost like the letter M. So you go down, up, back down. I may need to extend this canvas a little bit. Then what you can do is curve in once, twice, and then curve towards the body. So again, curve once, twice, and then curve towards the body. And you can add more than just 2, of course. You can add as many as you'd like, add as little as you'd like. And from there, you know, we have all of the very, very basic shapes of the dragon filled out. And then from here, what you can do, if you're working on MediBang Paint with me, you can create a new layer, name it something, and now we're gonna add on some more details. Now this is going to be our second pass, not the final one, with our lines. The second pass will just be kind of our sketch layer times 2. I'm going to change the color that I'm working with as well. I'm going to go with a purplish color this time. I'm going to start to add in more details. So the opacity of our original layer has been turned down, and now we're working on our second layer. And now we can start to add more of those extra forms in. So I'm going to define the cheek a little bit down here. The nose, you can draw a couple of nostrils up here. Almost look like commas. I'm going to draw the mouth. Add a couple of teeth pointing out, why not? Now a lot of these decisions that I'm making are kind of my own interpretation of what I think that a dragon would look like to me. You know, how many teeth you want to add, how little teeth you want to add, that's also up to you. And then an eye, what you can start with is like a small circle. Just like that, kind of in the middle of the larger circle here. And add on a couple of triangles to the ends of the circle. And because it's a dragon, you know, they probably have more snake-like eyes. So the pupil can just be a little line. So again, off to the side here, the main part of the eye can be drawn as almost like a circle. Add a couple of triangles to the end there. Then just for the pupil, you can draw a line, kind of like a snake's eye. If you want to get real fancy, you can add on a bit of an eyelid on the top and the bottom. Then what you can do is add some definition to the ears. This is what our second sketch pass should be. You know, adding a little bit more of that nuance. So I've added almost a bit of a wave here. And I'm going to add the inner ear as well. Then the horns. And I'm actually going to add some rings to kind of show off the 3-dimensionality. Come down, just trace the shape of the neck here. I'm going to add some spikes going down his back as well, so I'm just going to add a bunch of little triangles. And again, following the shape that we've drawn for the arms, I'm going to add in a little bit more curvature. So I've added in almost the shoulder muscle. And now we get into the actual feet. Now we've drawn just kind of these duck things for now. And if you would like to keep your feet webbed, you may do that, right? So you can just keep these in here and then add claws to the end. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just the actual feet themselves. So using this as kind of a guideline, I'm going to draw one toe, another toe, and one more. Just like that. And then I can add little claws at the ends. They can be drawn almost as long teardrop shapes. Right? And if you'd like, you can add the webs back in there. Right? So maybe the feet are webbed. I'm going to keep them on not webbed. And the same thing with this foot. And then let's follow the shape of the legs. So adding in some extra curves. And then just like the feet down here, we're going to draw the bigger toes. I'm going to add belly scales as well. So these kind of help bring our three-dimensionality back. Then coming from that, we can just follow the shape of the tail. And let's continue the back scales going down onto this tail now. Now to kind of give it a sense of more 3D-ness, I'm going to have it so then the scales don't follow the exact outside of the tail all the time. Then you can add whatever you'd like to the end of the tail. I think I'm just going to add, the very classic triangle. And now let's do the wings. So for the most part, when we get to the upper area, we can just follow the shape here. You can even add a little spike to the top corner up here if you'd like. I think I'm going to do that. But now, what we're going to do, instead of following this shape immediately, we're going to add in these inner workings here. Just think of it as almost like a fork. Every single point that is down here, you're going to add another line that comes down towards it. And then you can draw the inside and connect each of these fingers together. Same thing on the other side here. But with that, we kind of have our very, general dragon drawn out. And what we can do from here is, you line it, you can add your color. So let me just start to line this here. Let's lower the opacity of our sketch layer. Make sure that this one is hidden because we don't really need it anymore. I'm going to line with black. You can line with whatever color you'd like. Generally, you want something a little bit darker. I'm going to turn up my correction as well, just to keep my lines nice and smooth. And then you can kind of just almost trace your sketch, but it doesn't have to be traced, just get as... You can also improve as you go along, because sometimes you'll find that, your sketch isn't perfect in a lot of areas. So using your lines to fix it is generally the ideal. Now, one thing you may notice me doing a lot of the times when I line is, a lot of areas start to get start off very thin and then get thicker as I go throughout. And that's called line variation. Now, this is a very cartooned style of line work. It's also very stylized. Now, how you line your pieces, some people really like super thin lines, a lot of people like really thick lines. I'm very much a thick liner, so I'd like to use a lot of thick lines. But it is always better to get your lines done in one go, generally in one large stroke. And if you tend to struggle with that, you can turn up your correction up on the top there. I have mine set to 24, 25 usually. Your correction will basically help smooth out your lines, pick up less of your handshake. Now, when you're complete your lining, you're going to want to move on to the coloring phase. Now, the thing with digital work, though, especially with MediBang Paint or, with any kind of drawing tool, what you can do is you have your paint bucket. Your paint bucket works the majority of the time. I'm just going to create a new layer underneath my lines right now. It works the majority of the time, and MediBang Paint's paint bucket works quite nicely, but sometimes there is a bit of a quicker way to work with things. So we have something called the magic wand over here. You can select that and change your expand to 2 up at the top. And just click anywhere outside of your original drawing, right? So now you have this entire area selected. What you want to do is hit Control-Shift-I. That inverses your selection, so now it's selected on the inside. Go to your paint bucket tool and make sure that you're referencing the layer and not the canvas. Have your color layer selected. I think I'm going to go with a kind of a reddish dragon. And just click once then hit Control D, and now you have the whole thing filled in. Of course, there are some areas that you may have to fix up, so you can take the magic wands on the color layer and just select some of these areas and use the eraser tool. And just get rid of them all. Fortunately, MediBang Paint doesn't have a multiple select option, so this is kind of what you gotta deal with. But what I can do now is on my color layer, I can hit Protect Alpha. So now if I were to color something else, I can't go outside the lines. We are stuck within the dragon themselves. Let's turn off my correction. But now, if we want to do all of our flat colors, we can take the paint bucket tool, switch our reference. So right now it's referencing the layer. Let's switch it to reference the canvas. And now we can kind of pick out other areas that we want to fill in. So I'm going to change my tolerance as well, just so we can kind of get rid of the white line that goes around things. Yeah, just like that. You want to kind of raise your tolerance up just so you can pick out certain areas. Oops. And that's a good demonstration, actually. If your lines aren't completely closed in, then it will, you know, color in everything around it. So then that's when you will probably have to go in with your brush and fill in the area yourself. Now currently what I'm doing is I'm just kind of playing around with the color and seeing what combinations I like, seeing what combinations I don't like. This is kind of where you can experiment a little bit. Oh, forgot a little area here. I'm going with a very analogous color palette, and that basically just means it's a bunch of colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going with a very red, yellow, orange kind of scheme. A hint of purple. What we can do next is now we can add on our shadows. So now we're going to want to create another layer. I'm just going to name this one too. And instead of hitting Protect Alpha, we're going to hit Clipping. And what that means is now we've created a layer that is above the original one. That, you know, it won't go outside our original color lines, but it's also on a separate layer so we can hide it individually. So I'm going to keep this kind of bluish color. Go a little bit into the purple there, actually. I'm just going to start filling in some areas with shadow now. I think my light source is going to come from here somewhere. It's usually what I default to. And it's going to kind of look like I'm ruining this piece for a little bit, but don't worry. Just trust me on this one, especially if you're working digitally. We want to make sure that our shadows kind of follow the curve of everything as well. Because, you know, this is a three-dimensional. We want to kind of make them look more three-dimensional. Especially for me, my shadows tend to be very geometric, so you notice I use a lot of hard edges when it comes to my shadows. Of course, you don't have to do this. This is just kind of stylization that has happened over ages of shading things on my part. And once you have all of your shadows picked out, what you can do from here is over on the side with your layers, you can change the blending mode to multiply. And then turn down the opacity as much as you'd like. And now everything actually looks like a shadow. Because now it is blending into your dragon as a whole. What you can do if you'd like to do something a little bit extra, you can make a new layer, move it all the way down to the bottom. So you just click and drag. And you just do BKG. Go to your paint bucket, click to reference the layer once more. Make my background color is I'm just gonna go with let's play around with some colors here. Do I go with the yellow? No. Oh, you know what? Just for a nice contrasting palette, let's go for a blue. Yeah, let's go for kind of a pale blue. And what you can do is on top of that, you can also add in a shadow, just so like your dragon is sitting down. So it feels more like they're within the space. And make sure your shadow follows the shape the dragon. So you want there to be shadows for the wings as well. And you are complete once you have all of this done. You know, you can add some extra things. You know, you can make another layer, add on some extra scales, add on, you know, maybe some more highlights, whatever you'd like to do. But this is kind of, you know, the very baseline for what you can do when you are drawing a dragon. I had a lot of fun doing this one. I used to draw dragons a lot when I was a kid, so I do really, really like to draw them as characters and creatures and whatnot. If you liked what you saw, make sure to leave a like on this video, comment down below and tell me what you'd like to see me draw next, and hit subscribe so that you never miss an upload. And hey, we art nerds gotta stick together, so join our little art community with the links down below. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!